Martin Luther King once moved a nation with just 4 words. You know, sometimes when you're caught up in the daily grind, the endless emails, the kids' school run, figuring out what's for dinner, it's easy to feel like your voice, your ideas, just get lost in the noise. We all want to make an impact, don't we? To be heard, to genuinely influence a decision, or even just to get a project across the finish line at work without endless back and forth. It's a challenge I've faced countless times, whether trying to convince the team about a new architectural approach or simply getting my kids to agree on a movie night without a lengthy negotiation. I was thinking about this the other day, and my mind drifted back to a moment in history that still gives me chills. 1963. A sea of people gathered, full of anticipation and hope. Martin Luther King Jr. stepped forward, and he didn't begin with a list of demands or a detailed policy paper. He started with 4 simple, incredibly powerful words. I have a dream. Those words, that message, didn't just describe a vision. They ignited a movement. They tapped into something profound within people, moving a nation to action in a way that sheer force or wealth alone never could have. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? That great influence, the kind that truly shifts things, rarely comes from having the biggest budget or the most connections. It often comes down to the sheer power and clarity of a message. And that, in essence, is where Daniel Priestley begins his incredibly insightful book, Key Person of Influence. Priestley's premise is quite elegant in its simplicity, yet profoundly challenging in its application. He argues that in today's often chaotic and crowded world, your ability to make a real mark, to lead, to truly be a key person in whatever field you choose, isn't primarily about the size of your network or the resources you can command. No, it's about something far more fundamental. Knowing your unique value, and then, crucially, being able to craft and deliver a compelling message that resonates, that sparks genuine excitement and moves people to action. It's about standing out, not by shouting loudest, but by speaking with most clarity and impact. Think about it. How many times have you sat in a meeting where brilliant ideas get overlooked because they're poorly articulated? Or maybe you've had an innovative solution, but you just couldn't quite convey its essence, its potential, in a way that captured attention? I've been there. My mind often races ahead, seeing the finished solution, but explaining it step by step, making it tangible and exciting for someone else. That's where the real work lies. It's not enough to be good at what you do. You also have to be good at communicating that goodness. Priestley's work really hit home for me because it reframed how I thought about making an impact, not just at work, but in life in general. It moved beyond the usual advice of network more or be more visible, and instead focused on the foundational craft of communication and unique value. It's about being truly understood and valued for what you bring to the table. And in a world where everyone seems to be vying for attention, a well-articulated message, a clear sense of purpose conveyed with conviction, becomes your most potent tool. This isn't about becoming a charismatic public speaker overnight, though that certainly helps. It's about a deeper understanding of what makes your contribution unique, and then learning how to distill that into something powerful and memorable. Whether it's writing a concise email that cuts through the noise, explaining a complex technical problem to a non-technical stakeholder, or even just articulating why a family holiday to the coast is a better idea than the mountains this year, the principles are surprisingly similar. It's about making your message so clear, so compelling, that it sparks something in the listener, moving them from passive reception to active engagement. It's about transforming vague ideas into concrete understanding and ultimately action. That initial connection, that spark, is the real magic, and it's something we can all learn to cultivate, regardless of our role or responsibilities. This concept resonated deeply with me, not just in the context of career advancement, but in the broader landscape of how we navigate our responsibilities. As someone constantly trying to balance coding deadlines with bedtime stories and project requirements with school plays, the idea of influence often felt like something for others, the CEOs, the public figures. But Priestley peels back that layer, showing that influence isn't some grand, unattainable trait. It's a skill rooted in clarity and conviction that applies to every interaction, every aspiration. It's about ensuring that when you do speak, Your words carry weight, not because of your title, but because of the inherent value and truth within them. It's about cutting through the noise that constantly bombards us, from social media feeds to endless meetings, and making your signal unmistakably clear. It makes you think, doesn't it? How many opportunities, big or small, have slipped through our fingers because our message wasn't sharp enough, wasn't compelling enough, or simply wasn't heard above the din? We often focus on acquiring more knowledge, more skills, or more connections, yet overlook the fundamental art of communicating the value of all that. Daniel Priestley argues that this initial clarity, this ability to craft a powerful pitch, is the cornerstone. It's what gives your ideas the best chance to breathe, to take root, and to flourish, regardless of the scale of your ambition. It's about being able to articulate not just what you do, but why it matters and how it helps in a way that grabs attention and holds it. This isn't just about selling. It's about connecting, inspiring, and ultimately making a difference in the spaces you inhabit, whether that's a global market or your living room. Part 2, the 5 Ps: pitch, publish, product, profile, partnership. You know, it's a funny thing about industries, any field really, whether it's tech, marketing, even just the local community group. There always seems to be an inner circle, doesn't there? A handful of people who just seem to effortlessly attract opportunities, those crucial introductions, and the most valuable partnerships. They're the ones whose names come up first in conversations, the ones who seem to have a knack for being in the right place at the right time. For the longest time, I used to look at these people and just assume it was some mix of sheer luck, impressive connections they'd built over decades, or maybe just being inherently more charismatic than the rest of us. It felt like an exclusive club, entry by invitation only, and if you weren't born into it or lucky enough to stumble in, you were destined to be on the outside looking in. This feeling, this sense of being on the periphery while others seemingly glide into success, is pretty common, I think. It's that subtle frustration when you know you have good ideas, valuable skills, but the pathways to truly leverage them feel obscured or blocked. You put in the work, you deliver results, but the wider recognition, the bigger opportunities, often seem to bypass you. It's a bit like pushing a heavy door that just won't budge, while others seem to find the secret lever. But Daniel Priestley, in Key Person of Influence, really challenges that perception. He argues that becoming one of these key persons isn't some mystical feat of luck or genetics. It's not about who you know at first, though that certainly helps later. Instead, he lays out a systematic approach, almost a blueprint, for how to cultivate that influence. He distills it down to 5 fundamental steps, which he calls the 5 Ps: pitch, publish, product, profile, and partnership. Each step builds on the last, creating a cumulative effect that over time transforms you from an active participant in your field into one of its recognized leaders. Now, for the purposes of our conversation today, and because they truly form the bedrock upon which everything else rests, we're going to really hone in on the first 3 of these: pitch, publish, and product. These are the actionable steps, the ones within our direct control, that allow us to start building that essential foundation of influence. It's a perspective that aligns so well with some of the core tenets of Stoicism. Think about it. The Stoics constantly remind us to focus on what is within our power, our actions, our judgments, our efforts, and to let go of what isn't: external outcomes, other people's opinions, or sheer luck. Priestley's framework, particularly these initial 3 steps, offers a practical guide for applying this ancient wisdom in a modern context. We might not control whether a specific opportunity lands in our lap, but we absolutely control how well we prepare our message, our pitch, how consistently we share our knowledge, our publishing, and how we package our unique value, our product. It's about being proactive in shaping our own narrative and demonstrating our worth rather than passively waiting to be discovered or hoping for a stroke of good fortune. This approach shifts the focus from external validation to internal capability, empowering us to build our influence piece by piece. For me, this was a profound realization. In my career, like many of you in IT, there's often a tendency to just do the work and expect it to speak for itself. You deliver a solid piece of code, architect an efficient system, or solve a tricky problem, and then you move on. But Priestley makes it clear. Simply doing good work isn't enough to become a key person of influence. You have to actively shape how that work is perceived, how it's communicated, and how it can scale beyond your direct input. This isn't about bragging or self-promotion in a negative sense. It's about clarity, about making it easier for others to understand and appreciate your contribution, and in turn, trust you as an authority. It's about taking responsibility for how your expertise is presented to the world. It's about understanding that while the universe might throw some curveballs, we have a significant say in how we stand at the plate, how we swing, and how we present ourselves to the game. So, as we dive deeper, remember that the goal isn't just to accumulate knowledge or skills, but to become adept at translating that into tangible influence. Starting with how clearly we articulate our value, how generously we share our insights, and how smartly we package our expertise. Part 3. Pitch, the foundation of influence. So we've talked about the importance of a clear message and how that's really the starting gun for gaining influence. Daniel Priestley, in his framework, calls this first crucial step pitch. And honestly, when I first read it, I thought, yeah, pitching. I know how to pitch. I do it all the time, in meetings, to clients, even trying to convince my kids to eat their vegetables. But Priestley makes a really compelling argument that most of us, myself included, dramatically overestimate how good we actually are at pitching. We think we're being clear, but often what we're delivering is met with polite nods, glazed over eyes, and ultimately closed doors. Or at best, a lukewarm, "we'll think about it." A truly strong pitch, he says, doesn't just inform. It sparks genuine excitement and immediate action. It cuts through the noise and grabs attention. It gets people thinking, yes, I need that. Tell me more. This isn't about being overly aggressive or using manipulative sales tactics. It's about clarity, precision, and understanding the other person's world. It's about articulating your value in a way that resonates deeply with their needs. When I reflect on this, my mind goes straight to Epictetus. He taught that the very essence of philosophy, the core of how we ought to live, is knowing what truly lies within our control and what doesn't. We can't control how someone will react to our pitch, whether they'll buy into our idea or if they'll offer us that new opportunity. But what absolutely does lie within our control is the clarity of our message. It's our ability to distill a complex idea down to its essence, to name the problem we're solving, and to present the solution without a single ounce of fluff, jargon, or unnecessary detail. Think about those endless work meetings. You know the ones. Someone starts explaining a new initiative, and within minutes, you're lost in a sea of acronyms, technical specifications, and vague benefits. Everyone around the table is nodding politely, but you can feel the energy draining from the room. That's a weak pitch at play. The speaker knows their stuff, but they've failed to connect it to the listener's reality, their pain points, or their aspirations. The moment someone, however, steps in and sharply frames the issue. Our current system is costing us X hours a week in wasted effort, leading to Y delays. My proposal will reduce that by Z, freeing up our team to focus on A, B, and C. Suddenly, the room lights up. Heads tilt, eyes widen, and people lean forward. That's a strong pitch. It named the problem, offered a clear solution, and most importantly, highlighted the concrete benefit in terms the audience understood and cared about. I've certainly been guilty of the former. In my IT role, I often get excited about the technical elegance of a solution. I can spend hours diving into the intricacies of a new database schema or an ingenious piece of code. And when it comes to presenting it, my natural inclination is to share all that detail, to demonstrate the sophistication. But more often than not, the people I'm pitching to, management, sales, even other teams, don't need to know the bite-level operations. They need to know, what problem does this solve for me? How will this make my job easier, save me money, or help me achieve my goals? It's a constant discipline, reining in that desire to show off the complexity and instead focusing on the simple, clear value proposition. It's about stepping into the listener's shoes, understanding their mental landscape, and tailoring your message to fit. This isn't just about business either. It plays out in daily life. Trying to get your partner on board with a new family budget? A vague, "we need to save more," usually results in a blank stare. A clear, If we cut back on X, we can put Y towards our holiday next year and clear Z debt by December is far more compelling. Or convincing your child that doing their homework now means more uninterrupted playtime later. The principle is the same: clarity, problem solution, and tangible benefit. The Stoic lesson here, the one that whispers in my ear, is to be mindful of what we truly control. We control our preparation. We control the effort we put into understanding our audience. We control the precision with which we craft our words, stripping away the superfluous and highlighting the essential. We control the empathy we bring to the communication, striving to meet the listener where they are, not demanding they meet us where we are. A strong pitch isn't about a grand performance. It's about respect for the listener's time and attention and a deep commitment to clarity. It's about ensuring that the value you offer isn't just felt by you, but is undeniably understood by them. And that, Priestley argues, is the absolutely non-negotiable first step to becoming a key person of influence. Part 4. Publish. Turning opinion into authority. So we've talked about how crucial a clear, concise pitch is, getting people to truly understand and engage with your idea. But understanding is just one part of the equation. How do you build trust? How do you move from being someone with good ideas to someone whose ideas are actively sought out and respected? This brings us to Daniel Priestley's second vital step: publish. You see, everyone, and I mean everyone, has opinions, whether it's about the best way to handle a software deployment, the most effective marketing strategy, or even the optimal route to avoid traffic on the school run. We all have thoughts, insights, and perspectives. But Priestley makes a powerful distinction. Having an opinion is one thing. Publishing it, sharing it in a structured way, transforms that opinion into authority. It elevates you from just another voice in the crowd to a recognized source of credible insight. When I think about this, my mind often drifts to Seneca. He wasn't just writing private letters to his friend Lucilius to offer advice. There was a deeper process at play. Through those letters, he was also, in a very real sense, refining his own mind. He was taking his scattered thoughts on virtue, resilience, and living a good life, and forcing them into coherent, articulate arguments. He was, in effect, publishing his philosophy, not for a mass audience initially, but for a single friend and, perhaps subconsciously, for himself. And in doing so, he created a legacy, a body of work that still guides readers like us centuries later. His private reflections became public wisdom. That's the essence of what Priestley is getting at with publish. It's not about becoming a bestseller overnight or getting 1 million views on YouTube. It's about taking your knowledge, your unique way of solving problems, your insights from the trenches of your daily work and life, and giving them a form that can be consumed by others. This could be anything from a detailed article on LinkedIn, a blog post about a technical challenge you overcame, a podcast episode discussing trends in your industry, or even well-structured internal documentation that shares best practices with your team. I've certainly felt the friction around this. The thought often crosses my mind: who am I to publish this? Hasn't someone already said it better? Is this even interesting? It's a classic case of imposter syndrome kicking in, that little voice telling you your thoughts aren't original or significant enough. But then I remember what Priestley, and Seneca, in his own way, is suggesting. The act of articulating your thoughts, of turning them into a cohesive piece of writing or recording, forces you to clarify your own understanding. It makes your knowledge more robust. And even a short post that feels small and insignificant to you can be precisely what someone else needs. It could be the article someone saves for later, the link they share with a colleague facing a similar problem, or the piece of advice they act on that genuinely moves them forward. I remember struggling with a particularly thorny database optimization problem at work a few years ago. After weeks of digging, experimenting, and late nights, I finally cracked it. My first instinct was just to deploy the fix and move on. But then I thought about Priestley's point. What if I documented not just the solution, but the journey to the solution? The blind alleys, the wrong turns, the core insights that finally led to the breakthrough. So I wrote it up as an internal wiki page. It felt like a small act, almost an indulgence. Yet, within months, that page had been viewed hundreds of times. Colleagues from other teams, some I'd never even met, reached out to thank me, saying it saved them days of work. That small act of publishing, of sharing my process, transformed a private struggle into a collective resource, and in turn, elevated my standing as someone who not only solves problems, but also clarifies and teaches. It built trust and credibility without me actively trying to build a profile. It just happened because I chose to share. This is the power of publishing. It's a quiet, consistent act of generosity that builds your reputation, makes your expertise discoverable, and establishes you as an authority. It's not about grandstanding. It's about contributing value beyond your immediate tasks. It's about leaving a trail of thought that others can follow, learn from, and trust. And in a world overflowing with information, being a trusted guide who consistently offers clarity is an invaluable path to influence. It empowers people to make better decisions, and that in turn amplifies your impact far beyond your direct interactions. Part 5, Productize, scaling your expertise beyond time. So we've walked through the vital steps of crafting a compelling pitch and then consistently publishing your insights to build credibility. You've gotten people's attention, and you've started to build trust. But there's a lurking challenge for most of us, especially those of us who work in fields where our time is our primary commodity, be it in IT, consulting, or any service-based profession. If your income, your impact, your very influence is tied only to the hours you physically put in, you eventually hit a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day, after all. You can't clone yourself, much as we might wish for it, on those particularly busy Tuesday afternoons. This brings us to Daniel Priestley's third and arguably most liberating step, Productize. Priestley champions the idea of transforming your unique knowledge, your expertise, into scalable products. These aren't necessarily physical objects you hold in your hand. They could be systems, online courses, software applications, frameworks, repeatable methodologies, or even brilliantly organized workshops. The core idea is to package your know-how in a way that allows it to reach more people, generate value, and exert influence far beyond the confines of your direct one-on-one time. When I first encountered this concept, my mind immediately went to Marcus Aurelius. It might seem like an unusual leap, but bear with me. Marcus Aurelius never intended his meditations to be a product in the modern sense. They were intensely private notes, written to himself, a series of reminders and reflections on how to live a virtuous life amidst the immense pressures of leading an empire. Yet, by being preserved, by existing as a codified collection of his deepest thoughts and most practical philosophies, they became precisely that, a timeless product of wisdom. They've been translated into countless languages, studied by millions across centuries, and continue to offer profound guidance. He didn't have to personally mentor each of those millions. His thoughts, once externalized and structured, did the work for him. That's the essence of productizing. It's taking what you know, what you do repeatedly, what you're uniquely good at, and packaging it so it can travel further than your working hours ever could. Think about it in smaller, more relatable ways in our everyday lives. At work, how often do you find yourself answering the same questions, troubleshooting the same issues, or explaining the same complex process to different colleagues? My calendar is often dotted with these kinds of repeat interactions. I used to see them as just part of the job, a necessary drain on my time. But then Priestley's idea clicked. What if I took the common solutions, the step-by-step guides I instinctively follow, and turned them into a clear, documented system? Perhaps a series of concise video tutorials, a templated checklist, or a user-friendly internal knowledge base article. This isn't about just dumping information. It's about structuring it so it's easily consumable and actionable for others. I started doing this with some recurring technical support requests. Instead of walking each new team member through the same setup process individually, I created a short, clear video guide and a step-by-step document. The immediate benefit was obvious. It saved me time. But the deeper impact was that it empowered others to solve problems independently, elevating their skills and allowing me to focus on more complex, novel challenges. My expertise was now scaled. It was helping others even when I wasn't directly present. It was a small-scale product of my experience, quietly multiplying my influence by making others more capable. This isn't just a career hack. It's a way to contribute more broadly. In our personal lives, perhaps you're the family expert at planning holidays, managing household budgets, or organizing kids' activities. How much time do you spend repeating advice or performing tasks that could be systematized? A simple shared spreadsheet with a budget template, a go-to packing checklist, or a structured routine for morning chaos could be a form of productizing your domestic wisdom. It frees up your mental space and empowers others in your household. The Stoic perspective here is fascinating. It's about being effective with your efforts, recognizing the finite nature of your time and energy, and choosing to apply yourself in ways that yield the greatest and most lasting good. It's not about avoiding work, but about working intelligently. It's a practical application of the idea that we should make the most of what we have control over, our knowledge and our capacity to organize it, to create value that endures. Productizing is an act of efficiency, a way to make your unique contributions transcend the limitations of your own physical presence. It ensures your influence isn't a fleeting moment, but a lasting legacy of value that keeps on giving. It truly allows your know-how to travel further than your working hours ever could, multiplying your impact exponentially. Part 6. Reflection. Influence as service to the Beehive. We've just journeyed through the first 3 pillars of Daniel Priestley's framework for becoming a key person of influence: the sharp, compelling pitch, the credibility-building act of publishing, and the expansive power of productizing your expertise. It's a powerful set of tools, isn't it? Tools that, on the surface, seem geared towards personal advancement, towards standing out, towards making a name for yourself. But as I reflect on these steps, a deeper, more profound truth emerges. One that resonates strongly with ancient wisdom, particularly the Stoic philosophy that often guides my own thinking. Marcus Aurelius, that emperor-philosopher, once wrote something that always sticks with me. That which is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee. It's such a simple, yet incredibly potent idea, especially in our often individualistic world. He was reminding himself, and by extension, all of us, that our well-being, our true purpose, is inextricably linked to the health and prosperity of the collective. We are part of something larger, a community, a family, a team, a society. And true flourishing, true lasting impact, often comes from contributing to that larger whole. When we apply this Stoic lens to Priestley's framework, the motivations behind mastering the 5 Ps shift. Influence, at its best, isn't ultimately about ego, about personal glory, or merely about accumulating power for its own sake. Instead, it transforms into a powerful means of shaping value that genuinely benefits the larger hive, whether that's your immediate team at work, your industry, your family, or your wider community. Consider the pitch. When we invest the effort to make our ideas crystal clear, to articulate the problem and solution with precision, we're not just making it easier for ourselves. We are, in fact, doing a service to everyone listening. We're saving them time, cutting through confusion, helping them make better decisions, and aligning collective effort more effectively. A clear pitch isn't just about my idea getting chosen. It's about the best idea, or at least a well-understood one, moving forward for the good of the project, the good of the team. It's about building a shared understanding that propels everyone forward. Similarly, when we choose to publish our insights, to share our knowledge and experience, we're not just establishing our own credibility. We're enriching the collective knowledge base. That article I mentioned writing about a complex database problem that didn't just boost my profile. It empowered my colleagues, prevented them from hitting the same roadblocks, and made our overall IT department more efficient and capable. It allowed our beehive to operate with fewer stings and more honey. We turned private reflections and solutions into public resources, lifting everyone up. And the act of productizing? This is perhaps the most profound expression of the Beehive principle. By packaging our know-how into scalable systems, templates, courses, or guides, we're essentially creating tools that allow our expertise to serve hundreds, thousands, even millions without requiring our direct finite time. We're democratizing access to solutions, accelerating progress for countless others. That product of wisdom, whether it's Marcus Aurelius's meditations or a well-crafted project management template, extends its benefits far beyond its creator. It becomes a resource for the entire hive, an enduring contribution that continues to give long after the initial effort. So yes, Priestley gives us a roadmap for individual influence, for standing out. But the deeper lesson, illuminated by the Stoics, is that true, meaningful influence, the kind that truly lasts and genuinely enriches, isn't a solitary pursuit. It's found in the active, conscious choice to channel our clarity, our knowledge, and our ingenuity into actions and creations that serve something larger than ourselves. When our pitch sparks collective progress, when our words illuminate paths for others, and when our products empower countless individuals, that's when influence becomes real, authentic, and truly good. It's not about being the biggest bee. It's about being a bee that makes the hive stronger, more resilient, and more productive for everyone. Part 7. Practical takeaway. The power of clarity. If there's one overarching lesson, one single thread to pull from Daniel Priestley's book, Key Person of Influence, and carry into your daily life, it's profoundly simple, yet often overlooked. It's all about clarity. We live in a world that constantly bombards us with information, demands our attention, and often rewards the loudest voice in the room. Because of this, I think many of us, myself included, often fall into the trap of assuming that to gain influence, to truly make an impact, we need to be louder, or busier, or simply more of something. We might think we need to have a bigger network, flashier presentations, or work longer hours to prove our worth. But in truth, Priestley's framework consistently brings us back to a more fundamental starting point. Influence begins with being understood. Genuinely, deeply understood. Think about how that plays out. When your pitch is crystal clear, when you can articulate the problem you solve and the value you bring with precision, you don't just get a polite nod. You get an attentive listener, someone leaning in, ready to engage. Clarity sparks curiosity, and curiosity creates momentum. It moves people from passive reception to active interest because they can immediately grasp the relevance to their world. I remember countless times in my career, particularly in IT, where I'd present a complex technical solution, proud of its intricacies, only to see blank stares. It wasn't that the solution wasn't good. It was that my explanation lacked clarity. I was speaking in a language my audience didn't fully understand, focused on how it worked rather than what it meant for them. The moment I started distilling those solutions into tangible benefits, this will save you X hours a week. This eliminates Y security risk. This gives us Z new capabilities. Suddenly, I wasn't just a tech guy. I was someone offering solutions to their problems. That's clarity in action. It's the difference between rambling through a project update and delivering a concise summary that immediately highlights progress, challenges, and next steps, actually empowering the team to make decisions. And it's not just in the professional sphere. At home, trying to explain a new household chore system to the kids or convince my partner about a slightly adventurous holiday destination benefits from the exact same principle. Vague pronouncements rarely work. Clear, well-articulated reasons, benefits, and steps always cut through. When your ideas are clear, they become memorable. They're easier for others to remember and repeat to someone else, effectively becoming ambassadors for your message without you even being present. This is where publishing truly shines. When you put your thoughts out there in an organized, digestible format, whether it's a short article, a podcast snippet, or even just a well-written email, you're creating something that is not just visible, but also shareable. It allows your expertise to travel, building credibility and opening doors that might otherwise remain closed. Someone reads your insightful post, thinks, that's exactly what I needed, and forwards it to a colleague. Suddenly, your influence has expanded, not because you networked aggressively, but because your clear, valuable content resonated. Finally, productizing is the ultimate expression of clarity in scaling your influence. By packaging your expertise into a system, a framework, or a guide, you're making your knowledge accessible and actionable without your direct intervention. You're turning abstract know-how into a clear, repeatable process that others can pick up and use. My simple internal wiki page, which documented a complex technical solution, wasn't just a document. It was a clear, step-by-step guide, a mini product of my experience that empowered others to solve problems independently. It clarified a convoluted process, making it simple and usable. The central message here is that influence isn't some mysterious force only accessible to the naturally gifted or the perpetually busy. It's a deliberate outcome of relentless clarity. It grows when your unique value is presented in a way that is simple for others to grasp, visible in the places they look for answers, and easily shareable with those who need it. That's the kind of clarity that others not only remember, but actively repeat, refer to, and, most importantly, act upon. It allows your contribution to transcend your immediate presence, building a lasting impact that feels authentic and truly earned. It's about respecting the attention of others by making your message irresistible in its directness. Part 8. Applying the 5 Ps. Small steps, big impact. So, we've navigated through the blueprint for becoming a key person of influence, touching on the power of a clear pitch, the credibility built through publishing, and the reach extended by productizing your expertise. For me, personally, digesting Daniel Priestley's insights has really shifted my internal compass. It's made me look differently at how I spend my professional energy, and honestly, even my personal time. My big takeaway isn't about running faster on the networking treadmill or trying to attend every industry event. Instead, it's about a more deliberate, thoughtful approach, focusing less on the size of my network and much, much more on sharpening the way I explain what I do, on publishing more consistently the lessons I learn, and on packaging my work in ways that can genuinely help more people without requiring my direct, one-on-one time for every instance. It's about leverage, not just effort. For example, in my IT role, I've started being far more critical of how I present a new system architecture. Instead of diving into technical diagrams right away, I now force myself to start with the what and the why for the non-technical stakeholders. What problem does it solve for them? How will it make their daily lives easier? This reframing, this deliberate sharpening of the pitch, has already led to faster buy-in and a lot less head-scratching around the meeting table. It takes discipline to strip away the jargon and speak plainly, but the payoff in clarity and shared understanding is immense. Now, for you, listening to this, what might this look like in your own life? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture or a complete overhaul. The beauty of these principles is that they can be applied in small, incremental steps, each one building on the last. Perhaps, as a practical first step, it might simply mean taking 5 or 10 minutes this week to rewrite your own 2-sentence introduction. Instead of just stating your job title, try to articulate the value you bring or the problem you solve. I'm a project manager is fine, but I help teams deliver complex software projects on time and under budget. By untangling requirements and fostering clear communication is far more impactful. It immediately conveys your unique contribution. Or maybe, reflecting on the publish aspect, you could commit to publishing just one idea this week. It doesn't need to be a lengthy article or a polished video. It could be a short, insightful post on LinkedIn about a lesson you learned from a recent project, or an internal email to your team sharing a particularly useful tip or resource. That internal wiki page I mentioned creating about the database optimization problem? It started with just a few bullet points and a screenshot. The key is the act of sharing, of externalizing your valuable thoughts so they can benefit others. It's about being generous with your knowledge, trusting that good ideas, clearly articulated, will find their audience. And when it comes to productizing, perhaps you have a process at work or even at home that you find yourself repeating over and over again. Maybe it's a detailed checklist for onboarding new employees, a structured way you plan your family's weekly budget, or even just a template you use for meeting notes that consistently works well. Could you document that process? Could you turn it into a simple, reusable template or a step-by-step guide that others could easily follow? It might feel like a tiny act of efficiency, but it's a profound step towards scaling your influence. You're turning your personal expertise into a tool for others, freeing up your own time and multiplying your impact. This whole approach, these small, clear steps, are all aligned with a much bigger game: building lasting, authentic influence by consistently delivering value that is understood, accessible, and scalable. It's about taking agency over how your contributions are perceived, rather than leaving it to chance. It's an empowering way to approach your work and your life, focusing on what's truly within your control to make a difference. Part 9. All right, so we've covered quite a bit, haven't we? From the initial spark of a clear message to the power of consistent sharing and the liberation of productizing your unique expertise. These ideas from Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence really are foundational for anyone looking to make a more significant, lasting impact, not just in their career, but in how they contribute to the world around them. And as with any good book that opens up new avenues of thought, it often points you towards other valuable reads that can deepen your understanding or offer complementary perspectives. If you're like me, always on the lookout for that next nugget of wisdom, I've found a few books that beautifully connect with Priestley's core concepts, helping to cement these principles into practical action. First up, when it comes to refining that crucial pitch, making your message not just clear, but genuinely unforgettable, I can't recommend Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath enough. They delve into why some ideas endure and others fade into obscurity. It's not about being clever. It's about making your ideas simple, unexpected, credible, emotional, and telling a story. Think about all those times you've heard a presentation or a brief explanation that just didn't land, or an idea that was brilliant but quickly forgotten. The Heath brothers provide a roadmap for making your message sticky, ensuring it resonates, is remembered, and is repeated. For me, applying their principles to my work pitches has been transformative, moving from technical details to focusing on the core, memorable benefit. It helps you articulate that unique value, so when you deliver your pitch, it's not just heard, it's felt and remembered. Then, for the publish aspect, that gentle nudge to share your knowledge and build authority, Show Your Work by Austin Kleon is an absolute gem. While Priestley pushes you to publish, Kleon makes the act of publishing feel less daunting and more like a daily habit. He argues that you don't need to be a genius to share your work. You just need to be authentic and open about your process. It's about letting people peek behind the curtain, sharing snippets of your journey, your learning, your mistakes, not just your polished successes. This approach helps overcome that nagging voice of imposter syndrome we all face when we think about putting our thoughts out there. It makes publishing feel like an act of generosity and community building, rather than self-promotion, which deeply resonates with the Stoic idea of contributing to the common good. When it comes to productizing your expertise, transforming your hours into scalable systems and solutions, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber is a classic that perfectly complements Priestley's ideas. Gerber challenges the notion that being good at a skill automatically makes you good at business. Instead, he emphasizes the importance of building systems, of treating your expertise not just as a craft, but as a business that can run systematically. For those of us who feel trapped by the time for money equation, the E-Myth provides a powerful framework for seeing your work through a new lens, helping you to design processes that allow your knowledge to be replicated and delivered consistently, freeing you from being the sole bottleneck. It's about building a machine that delivers your value, rather than simply being the machine yourself. And finally, to truly anchor all of this with a resilient Stoic mindset, I always find myself returning to Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way. Building influence, putting yourself out there, creating and sharing. It all comes with its share of challenges, rejections, and moments of self-doubt. Holiday, drawing deeply from Marcus Aurelius and other Stoics, teaches us how to reframe these setbacks. He argues that obstacles aren't roadblocks. They are the very path to progress, opportunities for growth, learning, and refinement. When a pitch doesn't land, when a published piece is criticized, or a product launch falters, the obstacle is the way provides the mental fortitude to see these not as failures, but as invaluable lessons that strengthen our resolve and sharpen our approach. It helps you embody that quiet resilience necessary to become a genuine key person of influence, understanding that true influence isn't about avoiding difficulty, but mastering how you respond to it. These books, in their own unique ways, reinforce the powerful message of key person of influence, that true influence is built through thoughtful, consistent action, clear communication, and a generous spirit of contribution. They provide practical tools and a robust mental framework to help you on that journey. Part 10. Closing Thoughts. Clarity for Lasting Influence. So we've journeyed through Daniel Priestley's key person of influence, unraveling the threads of what truly creates lasting impact in a world teeming with noise. We've peeled back the layers of conventional wisdom, the kind that often tells us to chase endless connections or shout loudest to be heard. And what we've found, what this book so powerfully reminds us, is that genuine, lasting influence isn't really about expanding our networks to colossal proportions. It's not about having the biggest audience from day one or the most resources. Instead, it's a far more intimate, deliberate, and ultimately sustainable path. It begins profoundly with crafting clarity, ensuring that your message, your unique value, is not just heard, but deeply understood and immediately actionable. That clear, compelling pitch, as we discussed, is the initial spark that sets everything else in motion. It's the moment you cut through the static and truly connect. Then, it's about consistently publishing, taking your insights, your hard-won lessons, and generously sharing them with the world. This isn't about ego. It's about establishing credibility, becoming a trusted guide in your domain, and leaving a trail of valuable thought that others can follow, learn from, and share. It's the quiet, persistent act of turning your internal knowledge into an external resource. And finally, it's about wisely productizing your expertise, transforming your finite time and unique know-how into scalable systems, courses, or frameworks that can reach and benefit far more people than you ever could through one-on-one interactions alone. It's about building a legacy of value that works for others, even when you're not directly present. This approach, grounded in clarity, consistency, and intelligent leverage, is a powerful antidote to the overwhelm of modern professional life. It shifts our focus from the frantic pursuit of external validation to the deliberate cultivation of internal value that naturally attracts attention and builds trust. It's about building something durable, something meaningful, that truly serves others, echoing that Stoic principle that what is good for the beehive is good for the bee. For me, this book has been a profound reminder that the most impactful contributions often stem from disciplined self-reflection and a commitment to serving others with clarity. It's about making the most of what lies within our control, our thoughts, our words, our structured efforts, to create a ripple effect of positive change. If today's reflections resonated with you, if these ideas sparked a new way of looking at your own impact, I'd genuinely love for you to like, share this episode with someone who might benefit, and subscribe to Margin Notes so we can keep walking this journey of learning and reflection together. And of course, there's no substitute for diving into the source material yourself. Consider picking up a copy of Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence. Reading his words directly is truly the best way to dive deeper into these concepts and support the author's work. Thanks for carving out this time from your busy day to think alongside me. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next episode, where we'll unpack another book that helps us navigate the complexities of life with a little more wisdom and a little less stress.